This is the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show, episode 28 with Stephanie Calahan.
The Entrepreneur Unleashed. The Entrepreneur Unleashed. Entrepreneurs Unleashed. The podcast where purpose and passion become revenue streams. Be real. Take a stand. Change lives. Here's your host, Patty Keating.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show. I'm your host, Patty Keating. Entrepreneurs everywhere are creating a new breed of business success. They're making their own rules, taking a stand for their purpose, leading through integrity, and making money by changing lives. Join me each week for compelling messages that will inspire and empower you to unleash your true purpose. Would you like to turn your message into a signature system and monetize it with a program or product online? Join me for the Online Biz webinar, where we'll take you through the steps required to monetize your message. Head on over to onlinebizwebinar.com and reserve your spot today. I am so excited to bring you today's guest, Stephanie Calahan. She is a business vision catalyst, and she's known for fast transformations that she really helps her clients move through. Stephanie works with busy, purpose-driven entrepreneurs to leverage their business and get their message out with power, ease, and joy so that they can make powerful, positive differences in the world. They can exponentially up-level their profits and shift their mindset towards possibility and take a no-excuses approach to boldly creating a highly successful and meaningful business. All this, guys, while working less. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me on, Patty. I've been looking forward to this.
I have too. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to let you say a little bit about your business and what you're up to, and just give the listeners a little overview.
Sure, I'd love to. I work with, you mentioned who I work with. I am so fortunate to work with these world changers, the people that are really making a big difference. And the funny thing, Patty, is that sometimes they don't realize they're a world changer, but they are. Every single person that comes to me does this just really amazing work. Coaches, authors, speakers, holistic health practitioners, they're the people that are changing lives. And I have the blessing and the opportunity to work with them on both their inner and their outer game to help them get their message out with power, ease, and joy. And that inner and outer game is, there's these things that are going on in our subconscious that keep us from doing the stuff we know we're supposed to be doing anyway. And so we work on those things and help remove all those blocks. And then we take it to the point of building a strategy around who they are. There's so many really great coaches and gurus out there that are selling businesses in a box. And for some people, that works beautifully. For other people, they've bought 2 or 3 businesses in a box and it just hasn't worked for them. And some of those people end up working with me because we can define a business and a marketing strategy that revolves around how they think and how they work to make them successful.
That's awesome. What inspired you to start this business?
I used to work in the corporate space. I was in corporate consulting, and I worked in I consulted Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. And when I first started in that world, I thought I was going to retire from there, Patty. I totally, people joked my blood ran blue. That was the company colors. But I had my son in 2001, and at the same time, the company that I was working for decided to go from a privately held LLC to a publicly held company, and they went public. And all of a sudden, the corporate culture just totally shifted. And I went from working for a company that I really believed in and had the same values that I did to a company that was really toxic for me. So much so that I'd be in client meetings. On breaks, I'd be rushing to the restroom, getting physically ill, cleaning up, and then coming back into the meetings. It was a really huge shift for me. But I was getting paid a lot of money to do that job, and lots of really great benefits. And I had worked my way up into the organization where I was managing like 300 people. And, so everybody was saying, you can't leave. And it got to a point, Patty, where it was in the middle of the night and I was feeding my son. He was an infant at the time. And I was thinking about all those things that I wanted to teach him in life. And I just kind of had this epiphany moment of, if I stay with this current situation, I will be teaching him to sell himself, because that's what I was doing. I wasn't staying there for my values. I wasn't staying there because I liked the job. In fact, I was kind of sick most of the time. And my ethical borders were being tested all the time. It just wasn't me anymore. And I couldn't teach my son to sell himself. So I had to make a choice. I had to make a shift. And so I looked at everything that I did really well, showed up good on performance reviews and that type of thing. And then I narrowed it down to the things that I just really loved to do. And I started my business. I started it in 2002, had a couple test clients while I was still in the corporate space. And then we made a really huge leap, and I left my job. My husband left his job, and we moved 2.5 hours south to a community that had a lower cost of living so that we could keep our same lifestyle, but not have so much cash outflow since we were walking away from incomes. And the rest is history.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, of course, when you take those leaps, they are never quite as we expect. What kind of challenges or obstacles showed up on your path once you jumped?
Patty, I was my biggest obstacle. Mm-hmm. And that's true of a lot of people. So I had been one of those fortunate people that I'm a good learner, and I can pick up things really fast. And I was a hard worker. You could say I was addicted to hard work. You could say I was addicted to perfectionism and a lot of other things that aren't necessarily healthy. And so I mentioned that I came from this toxic environment, and I wanted to start a business that was serving and to my values and using my strengths and my genius. But what I didn't fix was my addiction to work. So when I was in the corporate space, I was working on average 70 hours a week, sometimes 80, sometimes more. I'd sleep there on occasion. And so I had that built into my system. So when I built my own business, I was like, this is so awesome. I get to do whatever I want to do and build it whatever way I want to build it. And so I built in, stuff for my business that was really solid. But then I went and volunteered on all kinds of boards within organizations and community things. And I was a court-appointed special advocate for children. And I became a rape crisis counselor where I had a pager on my side, and I'd volunteer and go to the hospital in the middle of the night when someone had been attacked and advocate for them in the hospital and with law enforcement. And all those things were really fantastic. And if you look at the walls of my office, you'll see all kinds of awards and plaques and stuff like that from all the impact I had on the world. But the problem with that was that I built in zero for Stephanie. Mm-hmm. And as a result, in 2009, I ended up so sick that I was told I wouldn't see 2010.
Wow.
So you can't get much more obstacle than that, right?
Right. Wow. And so how did you move through that?
Well, I had to get really real with myself. And first of all, I had to acknowledge I'm a workaholic, just like all the other aholics that can be out there. I had to admit I had a problem. And I had to really look at the fact that the illness that I had was really caused by me. And I had to own it. And then I found people that could help me. I found experts that were able to help figure out what was really going on. I had about 7 years of doctors that were misdiagnosing me before I had gotten to this point. And I was really not a healthy person. And so I had to look at my entire situation and redefine and redesign almost my entire life. I learned about food allergies I didn't know I had. I have 33 of them. I had to relearn how to shop and grocery shop, for heaven's sakes, and cook. But the real key here was that I took full accountability for what was happening in my life. Mm-hmm. And then I sought out professionals that could help me shift those things. And was life-changing, truly life-changing. I let go of my workaholic ways. I let go of my perfectionist ways. I say I am a recovering workaholic and I am a recovering perfectionist now. And I learned how to be happy with life and happy with me, not always having to go, go, go all the time.
Awesome. So is that the lesson, or were there other lessons that you learned as a result?
That was one of the lessons. I think one of the biggest lessons I had was getting truly honest with myself about what I really wanted versus what I thought I had to do with my business. Mm-hmm. What did I really want my business to be? And what did I really want my contribution to be? What did I really want for my time for me? And own it. Really, truly own it. Not feel guilty about it, not feel remorseful about it, but really own it. And then I was able to build a business model around that. The other thing that was a huge lesson for me was asking for help. Up until that point, I was I am woman, hear me roar. I can do all these things and I don't need help because I'm smart and I can do it. And I am smart. But being even smarter is asking for help. And that was something that was really hard for me to do. And now I'm a pro. I'm good at asking for help now because you can be so much more powerful and make such a bigger impact when you do ask for help.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good lesson for everyone, especially, when we're entrepreneurial and go-getters, sometimes that's one of the biggest challenges that we bump into is trying to do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
So what are you up to right now? What are you really passionate about?
What I'm really passionate about right now, besides the fact that it's summer. Summer is my favorite season. So lots of outdoor stuff. I even work on my deck sometimes, so I can get the outdoor season. But from a work perspective, I'm really passionate about helping people get past their blocks of what's keeping them from getting in the world. And what's showing up a lot right now for me, Patty, are people with visibility blocks and people with money blocks. Mm-hmm. So it has been just so much fun to be working through that stuff with clients. And of course, working with clients that you grow just as much as your clients do as you're working together with them.
Mm-hmm. So that's where your passion lies in creating, helping people move through this resistance and.
I call them light bulb moments. Uh-huh. It's those moments where all of a sudden there's this new perspective and then people have clarity and they can move on. Those light bulb moments light me up. I get really excited about them and they really energize me and charge me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's your vision for the next, say, 5 years?
And that, you are the first. I've done lots of radio and lots of podcasts, and you are the first one to ask me that question. And it's a good question. Really, what I'm doing in the next 5 years is I'm continuing to build out my private practice. I have a number of new programs that I've been offering to my private clients that I'm really excited about. And that's the next couple years. And building out, I'm going to do a new podcast coming up. And by the end of those 5 years, I'm looking at doing some of my own live events as well. I've been avoiding that, but we're looking at that in the 5-year future.
Nice. That's exciting.
Yeah. I am an ambivert, which essentially means that I am an introvert that has extroverted tendencies. So I have to do a lot to manage my energy. And so when I look at my 5-year plans, I now know from the sickness that I had, I didn't used to manage my energy very well. That's how I got so sick. So now I know that when I'm making my 5-year plans, I also have to have the energy involved to be able to do those things successfully and a right team in place so that I can conserve my energy too.
Absolutely. The team is so important in growing your business. And, you have to first, you've mastered asking for help. And I see a lot of people get stuck on that because they are afraid to ask for help and they don't get the right team in place. And then they wonder why they can't get to where they want to be in their business. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. You know, what's really interesting, Patty, and I'll share this part of the story because it may relate, someone else may relate to it as well. I mean, I mentioned that in my corporate space, I led a team of 300 people. I didn't do it all myself then at all.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 administrative assistants and a personal assistant, for heaven's sakes, plus the managers that I led and their supervisors and then the team. I knew how to delegate. I knew how to do all of that stuff. But somehow I had shifted in my own mindset when I went to working on my own. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that when they go from working in, whether it's a corporate space or just any kind of employment space, where there's some skills they had that somehow they kind of forget them for a little bit. So if that's you, know that it's possible to get them back.
So tell me about your personal growth in this endeavor of yours. What is the best advice that you ever received?
The best advice I've ever received is to be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that sounds so trite. But I see it in all of my clients where they know their own truth and they know what they want in their business and how they want to serve their clients. But somehow there's this little thing in the back of their mind that's telling them, well, you really can't do it that way. Maybe it was a guru that they listened to on a telesummit at some point that led them to think, well, they had to do it a different way. It really is totally possible to build a successful, thriving, happy business around who you are, not around who somebody else is.
Mm-hmm. And so did you receive that early in life, or when did that advice show up?
The advice showed up early. I didn't really believe it early, though. I mean, that's part of the reason I got sick, right? I mean, I was trying to prove myself to some degree. So the advice actually showed up very early. It showed up by someone that I really respected when I was speaking with him about the fact that I was going to be leaving my corporate space. Mm. And he was one of the first ones that told me that. And I'm a big believer, Patty, that if you hear something more than once, then it's probably something you should pay attention to. So while he was the first person to mention that to me, there were a lot of other people that would say things or I'd hear things, and I didn't always believe it quite at first. Now I do. Now I totally do, because I'm doing it, and I'm helping my clients do it as well.
That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about tools and resources. Let's back up. Tell me about the personal growth first that you've experienced as a result of your journey.
The biggest personal growth is really all the things that I do to nourish me. And I didn't used to do anything. And now I have things that I do in my morning routine, things I do in my evening routine, even things I do in the foods that I choose to eat that nourish me and allow me to be at my true best. And within that personal growth, I've learned that if I don't feed me first, if I don't feed myself and fill myself up first, then there's not as much of me to give to other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's some good growth, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. And you know what's amazing about it, Patty, is that my friends and family all say I'm even better to be around now because of it. I used to not do it because I felt like I needed to give and give and give to other people. But the reality is I'm a lot more fun now than I used to be.
That's some good personal growth too.
Yeah.
Being more fun. Let's talk about tools and resources. What gadgets or tools do you use to make your life easier?
The gadget that is on my side at all times is my iPhone. So I have slews and slews of different apps within my iPhone that help me to be more productive with my day, help me be connected, and I absolutely love it. So even things as simple as I use Google Drive, which is a Google product, and I use it to coordinate the delivery of services to my private clients. And the really cool thing about Google Drive is that it can work like a membership site where there are different documents that you can give different people access to. And there's app for it. And I know there's an Android app too, for those of you that aren't eye lovers. But I can manage all that right from my phone. So it gives me the flexibility to work from wherever I want to. That's one of my favorite gadgets. I have a lot of them.
So what about resources, books, podcasts, blogs? What do you recommend?
Okay. So from a book perspective, my all-time favorite book is a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Mm-hmm. And it's by Robert Cialdini. Mm-hmm. And I love it and I've read it more than once, and I get something different out of it every time. My copy is very tattered. There's coffee stains and tea stains on it from a couple times where stuff had got spilled. But I learn about me just as much as I do other people reading that book. So big recommendation there.
And we'll put that in the show notes. And by the way, guys, if you're out and about and you're listening, you can go to pattykeating.com/Stephanie Calahan. And you can also just search in the search bar for Stephanie's first name, and you'll be able to pull this up, and we'll have links for you in the show notes.
Awesome. And I'd say, from a podcast perspective, obviously yours. And then there's a couple others. There's one called Content Warfare with Ryan Hanley. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic about content creation. And there's one that's fairly new but really powerful called On Track Tips by Jason Weiser. Oh. And Jason actually does a Google Hangout on air and then converts it to a podcast. So you can participate either way. Nice. And then there's one last one. It's a radio show. Michelle Price has Breakthrough Business Strategies, and she's on Blog Talk Radio. And she interviews just absolutely extremely interesting authors. And the depth that she goes into with her interviews, I always come out with ahas on all of those.
Oh, that's great. We'll get all of those in the show notes. So, Stephanie, looking back, if you were to do this all over again, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to sleep more. I really would. Sleep more and know that you know more than you think you do.
Oh, so a little bit of trust in there as well.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Would you like to turn your message into a signature system and monetize it with a program or product online? Join me for the Online Biz webinar, where we'll take you through the steps required to monetize your message. Head on over to theonlinebizwebinar.com and reserve your spot today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show. If you did, please go to pattykeating.com and let me know what you're up to this year in your business. While you're there, be sure to grab your copy of 5 Quick Ways to Share Your Expertise.